Welcome. Oh my God, this is so fun. I always get really, really overwhelmed when I first start a workshop or see all, all these people in one space. So I'll just give myself a minute to kind of calm down a little bit. Um, but yeah, as we're getting settled in and letting everyone else join, I just encourage you to say hello in the chat and share where you're coming from. And what what you're ready to release from 2020. So I'll type that in there. And then when you are chatting, if you aren't familiar with Zoom at this moment, just make sure you're saying it to everyone, not just to an individual participant. All right, and we'll just give it a couple more moments. I'll make sure I'm set up. Hi, Jill. Amanda. Yeah, let's let go of this anger. I'm so glad you're all here. Yes, Karen. And if you were receiving the initial email from me, it's totally up to you if you want to have your camera on or off. You can, be visible or have more of a, what did I call it? Like private experience. It's really up to you. So, yes. Hi, Janelle. I'm so glad you're here. Oh, you're in Iowa now. Oh, I thought you were in Minnesota. This is also just so fun because people from, it's good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my gosh.
I'm in 3 states. So I am in Iowa today because I'm at my parents', and I will be in Minnesota tomorrow at my Richfield house, and then I will be in Wisconsin the following day, which is where we are COVIDing in the woods.
Wow.
So I was like, Iowa? Like Midwest?
Midwest. Yeah.
Pick your poison. So anyway, it's good to see you.
You too. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, this will be fun / whatever. Healing work sometimes feels like really serious, and I definitely treat it very seriously when I am speaking about it, but I'm trying to kind of like bring my full self to the experience of healing. It doesn't have to be so fucking serious. So, but yeah. Oh, Melissa, hi. Yeah, Melissa knows. Okay. This is so good. I'm loving seeing this already. Brandy from Cincinnati. I love that you're calling in from your bathtub, and it's very Brandy if anybody knows her. Yay. Negative energy of 2020, Katie. Yeah. For real. Yes. Let go of any demons. Yes. Dude, so much has been triggered in 2020. It's insane. Let me see. Okay, we are recording. And Shayna, hi. Oh, you're in Spain. It's 2 a.m. Oh my goodness. Well, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. That's so amazing. Wow. Okay, beautiful. So just to kind of run you through the gist of the workshop, and I mentioned this in the email, but I will walk through some information, and then we'll also it'll be a little bit of, me just kind of like talking at you, and then you asking any questions that come forward. And then we'll have some intentional time to pull up what you want to intentionally release. And that can be shared by popping on, with the mic or through the, I want to say the text, but through the chat. Either way, whatever feels comfortable for you. And yeah, some of this is going to be, we'll do a little bit of meditation. We're going to do a little bit of releasing. So all sorts of things. So just, kind of be ready for the ride, I guess. Just allow whatever needs to come forward for you, come forward. Do know that release comes in several forms. So it can be, for me, a lot of times it's yawning. So you'll probably see me do this tonight. Even before getting ready for this, I was yawning a ton before this exercise or this workshop, because it's just really like showing movement of energy through the body. So it can be yawning, it can be the obvious, which we might, consider release, crying, tears. It can be coughing, it can even be burping. So if any of those experiences happen for you, I just encourage you to, be okay with them, and meet them as they come. And yeah, I think, I think that we're ready to just dive in. I'm going to get my screen set up here. Yes, Leah. Okay. How do I do this? All right, beautiful. I'm glad you're here, Leah. Yay. All right. So for those of you who don't know me already, I have people in here from all of my walks of life, which is really beautiful. My name is Beth Porter. I'm an intuitive healer and life transformation guide, which is essentially just a fancy way of saying that I help people feel better about themselves and the world so they can go out and be their most powerful, magnetic, authentic versions of themselves, which I really believe ultimately lifts the planet into higher frequencies and, can make the world a better place, of course. So with that, just huge thank you for being here and really just doing your, I believe we all have a role here in everything that we've been experiencing in 2020, whatever is coming up for you, is here to trigger a shift and change within you. And by you tending to this, by you showing up to it, it's not only affecting your life, but it's making major ripple effects for the rest of the world. And I know that sometimes that can be hard to wrap your head around, because everything is just so, so intense, and it feels like we're getting hit with like wave after wave after wave. But just let that sink in a little bit. Let that land on you as an idea to consider, that what you do with yourself really does make a huge difference in the world. And for tonight, I would just love to encourage you to show up really just as you feel called. So if you're normally chatty, but you're feeling low energy or quiet, or maybe you're in a bathtub, so you're not going to jump on camera, that's totally okay. And if you're normally a little bit shy, but you feel this like pull or tug to share something, that's okay too. And if you're normally optimistic, but you're feeling kind of over it right now, just allow whatever is here with you tonight to just be here, and allow yourself to, show up as you feel called. And of course, so you think, yeah, if anyone would get on camera with people that they don't know from a bathtub, it would be Brandy Lockerbie. So maybe we'll get a preview. And just know that the reason why I'm saying that is because I think we oftentimes label ourselves as a certain way, or certain just, we might say that we believe in something, and that means we have to act in accordance to that belief. Or we might just, settle into the idea that, oh, I'm bubbly and chatty, so that means I always have to show up bubbly and chatty. And what's happening right now is, and what we're kind of moving into from, just like a whole, like maybe we can call it cosmic weather perspective, is that we're learning and relearning that, and remembering that we are multidimensional beings. We're not just this one facet of ourselves. And the collective has been walking around with this like singular facet, this 2D way of showing up. Yes, labels, super confining. And it's okay to lean into something for a while, and it's okay to lean out of it. And just really entering a phase and a whole new paradigm. I mean, without getting into all of it, 2020 is an initiation year for a new paradigm. And we are shifting into a space that is less binary thinking, or no binary thinking. So meaning it's not just this or this. And so we're seeing that reflected in all sorts of areas in life. And one way I want to encourage us to embody that tonight is just truly to allow yourself to meet yourself exactly where you are, whatever is coming forward for you, to see it and honor it as true to you today and true to you right now. So I hope that makes sense. Really, it's just an invitation. So if you haven't really, you know, if you're not somebody that's like super tuned into the way you feel and things like that, totally fine. Let this just be an invitation to practice and a safe space to be able to really just allow that experience. Because the more that we can do that with ourselves, obviously the more we can do that with other people. But yeah, and that thinking has served us for our society for a long time. It's also been breaking down for a long time too. But I don't want us to think that like, oh, this was like bad, so let's swing the pendulum into this other side. It's really about finding balance and harmony. And I have obviously intentions for what this workshop looks like over the next couple of days, including this evening. And I tuned into, I work with the Akashic Records sometimes. I won't go into exactly what that is, but tuned into the Akashic Records for this workshop and asked, is there something that I need to share? Is there something, what is like the overall intention here? And they were like, oh yeah, like what you're sharing, great, like keep moving on with that. But a bigger or another idea to make sure that we get across. And if you only take this away from the workshop, I think that would be wonderful. But just the reminder and like the truth that we are not going through this alone, that you are not going through what you're going through alone, that we are really all connected, that your pain is actually my pain, that your joy is my joy. And so kind of going back to what I was saying at the beginning, you doing the work with yourself really does make a difference in the world and in our communities. So just remembering that we are all connected and community is available and necessary for the evolution of our collective. So I wanted to make sure I shared that before diving in. So actually, I think let me just tune into this really quick. Yeah, I think we're just going to start with actually a quick energetic balance. So without going into my whole practice, I do work with liberating stuck emotions, negative emotions. We often will repress or push down negative emotions like anger. And I work to shift them out of the body so we can create space for a new experience. And I want to just have us do a kind of like a group-wide rebalancing. So I'm just going to tune in here and I'll tell you what to do. Okay, I'm going to see where we're going to start with the liver, which makes sense. We're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to have you, if you would like to join, put your palm over your liver, which is the bottom right rib space, and then the other palm over your forehead. And I want you to, yeah, this is perfect. Okay, I'm going to mimic what you're doing with magnets over here, but I want you to just think of the emotion anger. And yeah, when you have that in your mind and your hands placed, just go ahead and take in 3 deep breaths in your nose and out your mouth. Good. We're going to stay in the liver. Frustration. So think about frustration. Okay. And then we're going to put the palm over the liver and the back of the hand over the forehead. Yeah, and so bring to mind frustration and go ahead and breathe. Just 3 breaths in your nose and out your mouth. Good. And this is just allowing us to balance our systems so that we can kind of meet here a little more grounded and open. Okay, we're going to do some more. Still in the liver, anger, resentment, frustration, depression, stubborn. All right. So then put the back of your hand over the liver, which will feel a little awkward, and then the back of your other hand over your forehead. I kind of call that like twister. It feels a little bit like twister. So bring to mind that energy, that feeling of stubbornness, maybe being stuck in your ways or stubbornly holding on to old beliefs that you don't need any longer, or old experiences from 2020 that you don't need any longer. Good. So with that, go ahead and breathe. Good. Okay. We're going to do a couple more. We're just going to do all liver. So liver and gallbladder hold a lot of the like really heavy negative emotions that we're not comfortable with expressing. So it's very common to have a lot there. Let's see. Yeah, gall. So rage basically is the next one that we're going to do. Okay, so back of hand over the liver and the back of the hand over the forehead. And just bring to mind this sense of rage, which a lot of times we're not super in touch with. So whatever that looks like to you, kind of allow that idea of it to grow in your mind. And as you're breathing, just envision that you're releasing it. So go ahead and breathe. Okay, one more. Oh, good. Good, we're out of the liver. All right, let's go to the heart. Lost and vulnerable, abandoned, deserted, insecurity. Cool, insecurity. So you're gonna do the back of your hand over the heart space. I just do it like in the center of the body. So again, it will feel a little awkward just for a moment. And then you're gonna do the palm over the forehead. And just bring to mind the feeling of insecurity, insecure about the future, insecure about what the hell we're doing right now, all of these things. And go ahead and breathe. Awesome, good, good. And you can release your hands and just shake them out as long as you like. Hi, Terry. Welcome. We just went through a little bit of an energy balance before I was diving into the content here. But from that, you should feel a little bit more, well, it depends on what you might feel. But for me, that helps me to feel a little more grounded. And that's just helping us, warmth in your chest. So any sensation that you feel free to share, and just know that you're literally like opening space in your body from doing that. If you think about doing yoga, for example, and twisting in a pose or whatever, and then releasing, you have all this new space in here. What does it mean if I felt sensation? So we were like working with the liver, and that just means that it's moving. Stuff is moving inside of you. So again, like I was saying before, release can look like yawning or crying and things of that nature, but it also could be like tingling. It can feel like just the way you would describe energy there. Heat is something that I feel a lot. We're focusing on anger today. Anger actually is like, think about the fire inside of you. It is, it brings heat to your system. If you have excess anger, you might experience like skin issues, like heat in the skin, either redness or acne or cystic acne. So we want to like move, allow that stuff to move. Oh, yeah, Brandy. Okay. So with that, and anyone, yes, Terry, for sure. Anyone that, if you feel any moments of like overwhelm, I know, Brandy, that you're dealing with a lot of PTSD, like currently that's been showing up in your life that you're aware of. Just what I do is also I support this area up here. It's kind of like the high heart. So I'll put some pressure there and just rub. You can also put your hands on your kidneys, which is like your lower back, and you can rub there. Those are two areas in our system that we release fear. So Brandy, specifically for you, just you know, remembering and reminding yourself that you're safe, that you're in a safe space, you're in your home, you're in your bathtub, grounding into the water. Since you are in a bathtub, like you can envision the negative energy, the negative emotions that you don't need, kind of releasing into the water. It's like super cleansing. So just allow that to, you know, allow it to move, and also tend to yourself. So what you need in the moment, if you need to pause and just breathe, allow yourself to do that as well. So we'll dive in to, we did the energetic balance. I think, how are you all feeling? I was going to walk us through a little guided meditation, but I kind of feel like, let me know if you feel grounded after doing that, or if you could use another moment to settle, because I know that we're living in a kind of an intense time right now to take the moment to be in your body. So just give me a couple like thumbs ups if you're feeling good, or if somebody is not feeling rooted as I can be. Yeah. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Cool. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. So we'll go right into the concept of anger and justified anger. So I just want to start by like clearing the air about anger. Anger isn't bad, and you probably already know that. You know, like I'm saying before, like I was just saying, that it kind of like creates, it's like a fiery, heated sort of energy inside your body. So when we are in anger, it actually activates us to make a change, or activates us to do something. And it's a very, it can be a very intense like emotion. And like all emotions, it's supposed to move in your system. It's just giving us information when it shows up. So if we're not really, you know, used to accepting it or processing it, as most of us aren't, we're not really taught in this world that it's okay to express anger. And mostly when we see anger expressed, it's not expressed very skillfully, that, you know, we tend to like push it down, or we tend to overexpress. So, you know, it usually shows up when a boundary has been crossed. It's usually telling you that a boundary is crossed, and that you need to speak up for what you need, and you need to sort of, you know, take your power back in that moment. And so, you know, the idea of letting it just be there kind of makes it stay, because it's meant to move. It makes it stay in your organs, and it literally creates like physical blockages in your system. So if we think about like if our bodies were completely energetically open, then what flows through there is just unconditional love. It's a connection to divine. It's a connection to your higher power. It's a connection to your love. But, you know, we come here, we have all these experiences, we create all these ways of, or we learn all these ways and are modeled all these ways of believing that we need to operate in the world. And we stuff a lot of emotions, and we create blockages, almost like kinks, like in like a hose. So it doesn't allow your body to be open enough to allow anything to flow through that is beneficial. So, you know, so again, it's not bad. So anger stems from, yeah. Terry, I don't know if you're familiar with the book. I was going to bring this up later, but I'm obsessed with this book, The Language of Emotions by Carla McLaren. So if you're interested, and she talks a lot about, she talks about tons of emotions, and has all these practices in here to do like self-work, but really explains like what they're trying to tell you, and, you know, how to effectively work with them. She talks about anger being your boundary. And so when you have a healthy flow of anger, you actually have healthy boundaries in your life. And it's actually meant to hold the space for your energetic body so that you can operate really well in life. I can like go down in all these different rabbit holes there with her work, but I would definitely look her up if you're interested in diving in deeper. But again, with anger, we're not really used to expressing it. You know, we're told, we're praised for, you know, especially as, you know, people who are identifying as female, like you're praised for being like a good little girl, or, you know, oh, she's super nice and blah, blah, blah. But if you start speaking up about what is frustrating to you, you can, you know, it's not encouraged here. So what we need to do is be able to acknowledge anger. acknowledge it when it comes up, acknowledge it when it's stuck. Just understand that you can do something with it. You're not like, if you have blocked it, it's not going to stick with you forever. But if it continues, if you continue to process anger in that way, it can lead to other issues that are physical issues, like autoimmune disorders and things of that nature. So, and I was going to dive into that in just a minute, but yeah, I'll get to that in just a minute. So, the way I work with it, finding the root of anger in your liver and your gallbladder, and just like what we were doing at the beginning of this, just like releasing it, and also looking at what the story is connected to it. So obviously we didn't do that at the beginning because we're not looking at everyone's individual story, but typically it's, helpful to understand what that anger is tied to, if it's your anger or if it's someone else's. So that's a whole other thing, is that we also absorb other people's emotions. And depending on how sensitive, like emotionally sensitive you are, a lot of your emotional experience can be driven by the people around you. If you don't learn how to create boundaries and see and feel an emotion come through that is not yours to deal with, that you can just let release. So I'm a major emo sponge. Yeah, me too, which is why I'm here. Anger actually, well, yeah, I've been through emotional boot camp probably for the last 10 years, but anger is one of my biggest teachers. And, just I'm still learning. So I'm definitely not the expert in all things anger. It's one thing to understand something from your intellect and then to put it into practice in your life all the time. But yeah, if you're somebody who struggles with expressing anger or working with anger, we often will attract people in our lives that have a different expression of anger that triggers your anger, so that you can begin to learn to work with it. Just looking at other people as mirrors for that. It's really interesting. So getting into justified anger, which is really what tonight is about. This is I call this a sneaky anger. It's anger that you have a right to because somebody or something, happened to you that you didn't really sign up for, or you didn't cause. So, it's one thing to be angry because somebody because somebody's mean to you or something like that. Or say you get into a car accident and it was the other driver's fault. You can feel justified in that anger because they were an idiot and didn't pay attention to the lights or whatever. When we do that, when we have justified anger, it kind of gets lodged a little deeper because we have this belief that it makes sense for us to hold on to it and that it's actually serving us in some way. And this is something that, collectively we're experiencing with COVID. I mean, the experience of 2020 has been incredibly shocking and is here to really shake shit up, because for too long we've been living in ways that aren't serving us as connected individuals or the planet. And there are a lot of things that are here to wake us the fuck up. And what's coming with that is a ton of justified anger, a ton of, if you're somebody who has lost your job due to COVID, or, got sick because somebody else wasn't wearing a mask, or missed Thanksgiving dinner with your family because you came into contact with COVID. You can have this justified anger toward the government because of the way that they are dealing with it or not dealing with it. You can also have justified anger toward God or the universe or your higher power for letting you down, in whatever way. And also, we're experiencing a lot of death. I mentioned that in the video leading up to this, but whether it's actual death or death of parts of ourselves, and justified anger can be there as well. So what we want to do is to see this anger and listen to it. And that's what we're doing here. We've created a space to intentionally pop in here and allow some of this stuff to come forward. when you experience anger, you know, it gives you this opportunity to like make adjustments. So again, if it's, do you need to create a boundary? Do you need to speak up for yourself? You know, do you need to recognize that like you are not powerless, that like if somebody is asking you to do something and you don't want to do it, you actually have the choice to say no, if you don't want to do it. I mean, those are like very, you know, overarching examples. But then you also want to let it flow. So again, it creates action in your system. So do something with it. If often we'll swing the pendulum. So we'll either like swallow it and make excuses for the other person or the situation. Like you might actually be holding justified anger around COVID, but you could be you could be swallowing it and making excuses, or making excuses for like, well, of course I feel like everybody feels this way, so like I shouldn't feel this way, or there's nothing I can do about it, so what am I supposed to do? You know, like that's actually, and it's important to be able to like let it come forward. Brandy, yeah. Seriously? Okay, well, let me just go on a quick sidebar about saying no. You know, how do I go in? Well, I don't want to go into it too far, but basically just recognizing that, you know, any of those moments where you feel, because this is super linked to boundaries, any of these moments where you feel like you have to do something for someone in order to keep the peace, in order to make them happy, in order to make sure that they don't get angry. So again, like if you are somebody who's working through anger, or like has a maybe, I don't want to like label it this, but if your relationship to anger, you know, if you still are learning from anger, we'll just say that, you will attract people in your life, like a boss or a partner, or maybe a kid who's like super, like expresses anger in a very different way than you. So, you know, that's happened in my life. And so in order to like keep anger from happening, because I've been so uncomfortable with it, I'll go this back route of doing certain things, acting a certain way, saying yes to things that I don't want to really do, in order to keep some semblance of peace. But what's actually happening is that like I'm saying yes to things that my body, that my system, that my soul doesn't want. And I'm just like damaging my own sense of power, and you end up feeling powerless. And kind of like what I was getting at earlier, the longer and longer that happens, you know, it can lead to other things. It can lead to autoimmune situations. It can lead to cystic acne. That was a big part of me healing my skin, was understanding that there was a time where I learned that it wasn't safe to say no, and that I didn't feel like I had that right. So anyway, I could talk about that forever. It can become a vicious cycle for sure. So, I think about anger, you know, this Karen McLaren, I think that's how you say her name, talks about it as like, you know, she talks about it as the boundary. And I think about like anger as, the boundary of your body being like your skin. And anger is something that, you know, is processed through the liver. And if you have skin issues, it's usually tied to your liver. So doing liver cleanses and working with your anger would be like a really good place to start if you're like me and have any of those issues. But yeah, so the other side of the anger is expressing it like super, like over expressing it, like with rage, or in like a way that impedes on other people's boundaries. So, you know, throwing something across the room, or like when someone's in there, of course, you know, actually like screaming and like trying to take back your power by getting really big and like more powerful than the other person, or, you know, using manipulative tactics in order to really get them where, obviously this is a relational dynamic, but really get them where, you know, it will hurt. So what we want to do is not swing the pendulum, but kind of find a place in the middle, and where we allow anger to flow and we can acknowledge the information it is trying to share with us, and not like shit on ourselves for not knowing before. So that's another thing, like please approach all of this with massive compassion. But yeah, give yourself a space to be able to meet it and learn from it. And then say, okay, what needs to happen here? I feel angry. And maybe you don't even know what feeling angry feels like. There are people I work with that are not used to even feeling angry because they've pushed it down so far that It's like not something that they could say, this feels like anger, if that makes sense. So, kind of meet yourself, like get curious about it and learn more about it. So yeah, I mean, going into the autoimmune situation, like holding on to anger for a long time can lead to a lot of things. Obviously, essentially autoimmune is just when the body's immune response turns against healthy cells. So it's this kind of energy of like you saying, I hate you to yourself. And that's really because we'll have this excess anger that has nowhere to go. And then it gets turned, like goes into your system. So that's all of this like anger, hatred, rage is just like turned inward toward you. And then, people who can't express anger is like a type of person that usually would experience something autoimmune. Like I said, not even recognizing when they're angry, when a situation actually calls for it. And yeah, absolutely, Terry. It causes dis-ease, like and discomfort in your system, really as like information for you to, I see those things as like opportunities. A lot in this like spiritual self-development world, there's a lot of talk around spiritual bypassing. And yeah, when I learned about that, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. We need to I use the negative emotions that we are carrying and holding as a roadmap to liberate what's happening in your system. So anytime you're feeling down or negative, it's like, do not push it away. Just allow yourself to work with it and hear what it has to say. Now, if you're somebody who's like really, really down and has been down for a long time, like know when to seek support, and also know that there's nothing fucked up with you. It's you need to seek support. We don't all come here like with the same burden. So I also want to just I'm maybe going down a little rabbit hole, but we're not all here with the same level of pain that we're carrying. And there's, like I said, a major like reckoning happening right now. You may be called or have already experienced this, but the healing work that we do is like healing for the generations before us and the generations to come. It's a lot. So massive compassion and time and work, like seek help if you are in a space where it's a consistent experience for you, or you feel like you can't get your head around it. Because it's totally normal. We're not taught to get our heads around it. We're not educated in this. So let's see. Oh, and yeah, and the other type of people that usually wind up with autoimmune situations are people pleasers, people who can't say no. So again, going back to that boundary. Excuse me, I didn't know my email's on. My bad. Okay, so let me check the chat here. I love this group. Thanks, Brandy. I know my mind goes all over the place, especially getting excited. Yeah, the automatic reaction, how to recognize that we have an option to say no before it happens, or after it happens. Just be like, oh yeah, that's an experience where I could say no. And if it is in a relational dynamic, like addressing it vocally, like, hey, I realize. One thing that I'm working on is, because I learned very young that, it was much better to go with the flow and like, don't like mess with anything in my parents' lives or whatever, because things were hectic at home or whatever. And I was just, what's the word? Like praised for being a good kid who didn't have any issues. So when you're like constantly praised for that, then you can create a lot of perfectionistic tendencies and things of that nature. And it didn't come from any negativity or like any, my parents they meant well. But what I was taught, because the first 7 years of your life, everything that you're intaking is truth to you. There's no lens you put it through with a faculty that understands, oh, this is my dad being upset about him. Like you see him get angry about something and you make that to mean something about your experience with it. So as we are adults and we get triggered in these spaces, we go back to that age, those moments where that was true for you. So for me, one of the big things I'm working through now is noticing when I can, just like what I'm saying, noticing when I feel like my boundary it is sort of after the fact, Melissa, actually, like when I am angry tells me that my boundary has been crossed because I didn't say no up front. So then it's like, okay, just take a deep breath, remind myself that I'm not powerless. And then I go and make an adjustment. Like, okay, this needs to shift. And it doesn't always like, you can reach out to people and ask like, hey, I need to like say this to somebody. And how does this sound? Like, just please don't think you have to do it by yourself. Like you can start journaling and you can reach out to people and ask how that all goes. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. Well, I was going to see, I want to make sure we're like sticking within time. Cause again, I could talk about this all day. Oh my gosh, Brandy, I know, raising 3 girls. Yeah, I know. I actually have a friend who, when I watched her parent her, she has a son and a daughter. When she was parenting her daughter was being like a total brat. She was like 3 or 4, she was having a moment. And, my friend will sit with her and say, tell me what's going on. Like, what's happening here? And then they like, it was just one of those days where she continued to like get into this like really bad attitude and, was like actively being mean to her brother and things like that. And I heard her say, hey, you like stop. I think she said the phrase like, that's ugly behavior. We don't want like, stop having this ugly behavior. Let's talk about what's going on. And I was like, this was a few years ago. I was like blown away. I was like, you could call like, cause I was wondering how you speak to little girls without calling them beautiful and all those things, putting all these things on them. And then the flip side of that, like actually treating the words beautiful and ugly, in relationship to how they are showing up in the world versus how they physically appear. Anyway, that's just sort of a side note. But yeah, so, okay. What I want you to do, and if you sent me a message privately, I'll make sure that I get that. I'll get that to you. So just hang on, because I think I'll probably stay on after to chat a little bit longer. But any questions about that as we move forward, we're going to get into this exercise, which will just allow you to bring forward what's coming up now. Okay, so we are going to, I'll set the timer just for a few, maybe like 7 to 8 minutes. And if you have your journal and your notepad, or your notepad and your writing utensil, or your phone, however you want to record, I'm going to put some questions up on the screen, actually. Just give you some time to just think about these questions and just dig in, and knowing that you don't have to be, let it be whatever is coming forward for you right now. If you're anything like me, I'm like a self-development junkie, and we often get really caught up in the healing before I can live. I'm like super guilty of doing that. And the more and more I'm in this work, the more and more I see how just a little seedling of something will show up 3 weeks later and be resolved without needing to do anything about it. So just know that if 2020 was a big year, it's a long year, very intense year. So I guess I just want to invite you to not feel like you have to try and capture everything that has happened for you in 2020 in this journal prompt, but let this be an exercise that of course you can return to at any moment. I'm going to play a little music. Good. I'll mute myself. So I'll pop back on in about 8 minutes. hopefully you had some time. Where's my video here? Here we go. Hopefully you had some time to kind of bring forward some of that. And I just want to, before, we'll have a moment to share. And yeah, I should probably make these an hour and a half, but we'll just meet us where we are today. So I'll have a moment to share, and then I'll walk us through the next practice. And that's really like the closing of the practice. So I'll probably close, and then for whoever can stay, can wrap this practice up alongside me. So, and then if you cannot see it, or if you cannot stay tonight, totally understand. It'll be, and the replay will be in my group. And if you have any questions about it, I can just shoot me an email, and I'll be sure to get to you. So I do want to acknowledge this concept that, the more we embrace and understand and work with some of these harder emotions, like these lower vibration emotions, like anger and, fear and, worry and all that stuff, feeling, all anguish, like all that. The more that we have a relationship to those and we don't judge ourselves for them or push them away, it actually gives us greater access to the higher vibration emotions. So, essentially we've been taught to numb as much as possible, so that we don't have to feel pain. And when you numb yourself from feeling pain, you also numb yourself from feeling the really good things, the joy, the excitement, the pleasure, the deep pleasure. Like our society is like missing pleasure like no other. And I mean, you'll probably already seeing like a resurgence of people that are teaching others and teaching us how to access pleasure again. But part of that is being able to live from a space that is open-hearted, that is willing to take the risk of the pain and experience the pain in order to also then experience the deeper emotions that are really good, that feel really good. So I wanted to say that just because, when I first started working with my heavy emotions, I don't know if you're familiar with Enneagram, but if you are, I'm a 4, which is like the type of Enneagram that like loves to be in the shit, loves to be in the melancholy, loves to just like be in the feelings. And while that's really beneficial, because now I can understand the qualities of them and work with people in that way, I have to be careful to not always live in that shit and like allow myself to kind of be in the higher vibration feelings too. So I wanted to acknowledge that, we all have different relationships to being able to access our emotions. And, one of the gifts of being able to feel a lot is that you can feel all of the things. And also that we all have the capacity to be in all the spaces, the hatred, the anger, the rage, whatever, judgment, as well as the capacity to be in, the higher states. And so if you're somebody who's experiencing like, the really low stuff right now, just know that it's not I just encourage you to meet it, just see it for what it is. Okay, I am experiencing this, and that is okay. So I think what we get into this like vicious cycle of feeling what we feel and feeling like it's bad, labeling it as bad, and then judging ourselves. And one of the practices I do is, before I do something and I'm feeling nervous or worried, I will or really angry at someone, like really angry. And I'll just take a deep breath, and I'll just like put my hand over my heart, and I say yes to this emotion. Like I just allow it. I say yes to it. I release it from my body, mind, and spirit. We can go into like language in another time, but it can be really powerful to just meet yourself with what the emotion is and allow it to just be there. And as soon as you actually like work with it, it goes somewhere, because it doesn't need to be with you all the time. So, okay, with that, I was just curious with these moments that we have left, if anybody wanted to share what came forward for them. And you can share in the chat or just pop on unmute. Okay, And if you want to keep it private too, that's okay too. Oh, Brandy, you're out of the tub. I couldn't see you earlier, like on the screen.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
I'll share. Is that okay?
Please, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So before you even pulled up that question, when you were talking about saying no to things that you really don't want to do, and I just got this like moment of like, oh my gosh, if I started saying no to absolutely everything I didn't really want to do, like,
Then what?
what would I do? But like, what would I do? There's a lot of things I don't really want to do that I do. And I just, it's just an automatic, like you're trained to say yes. So when you said that, not that I've never heard, you know, what boundaries are, although you would have thought I have never heard of that word until this year. It was like, wow. Like every time I'm asked something, my first immediate response is, okay, how do I make this like a yes? Like, I don't want to do this, but how can I make it work? Which is kind of, I don't know, when I thought about how often I'm doing it, it was kind of overwhelming. So that's something I'm going to need to like sit with for a while. I think I'm going to have to do more work on that. But when you asked what I was angry about, I did this like whole, like it's totally typical of my personality, like a stream of consciousness. I thought it was going to be like a bulleted list because I think I've already done that, but it was not. So I said, I'm still resentful that I'm the one that is constantly doing the healing work, which makes me feel both elitist and also like, no dummy, you just got fucked up. AKA, I can't decide if I'm either like really fucking awesome, like Beyonce level, or like a long lost cause, which I know the answer is not the latter. So like who wants to be that person always on the mend? Someday I want to be a basic bitch or dude that feels fine and really means it, like is good without desire to fix something about themselves, just chilling and enjoying whatever mediocre experiences in existence they are having. Everything in that world is like pale gray and blue, very even. But I'm like a Jackson Pollock graffiti. Someone ripped the canvas up and then we wove it back together with lace and added some little corny found objects inside chunks of paint, making these little tiny worlds inside crevices, little civilians that are going through the same things we are. Like there's a little tiny pixel-sized Brandy in a bathtub listening to some wooden flute thingy and typing notes in her phone. Maybe that tiny Brandy realizes she is part of this giant universe that's inside of another universe, inside of another, and inside of another, and infinity. The world becomes so expansive that she can't even pretend to try to understand. She just lets everything go and enjoys the small pieces of the giant pie that she is given, the space she consumes. So it was like really bizarre because I went from this like judgment of myself of, is all this work that I'm doing because, you know, I am quote unquote good, or is it that I'm just really messed up, to almost kind of playing, describing myself in like a super like artistic, poetic, like makes me want to like make this like self-portrait way, that ended up allowing me to kind of uncover like kind of what you were saying in the very beginning, like if who I am in this like world that I've created inside my mind is just part of a bigger universe. We know from a physical space like Earth, but that is inside of another universe. Like it almost became so big, like because we can see images of the world, we can travel, because we have access to everything, it makes us feel like we have the ability to understand all those things. But if we think of it even bigger than that, and even bigger than like the things that we kind of know from a scientific perspective, maybe that will allow us to just let go of trying to get it.
I mean, first I just want to like honor, that's a lot.
You know how I roll.
And I am so happy you're here and sharing with us, and I appreciate it. I mean, there's a lot obviously to unpack in all of what you shared, but it's really beautiful, and want to encourage, like, just going back to the saying yes to everything. Well, a couple of things. Encourage, like, this is something that's new. Thank you, Jill. Yeah, I'll follow up. I'll finish what the rest of the exercises are, and then I'll send them out. It'll be in the group. But yeah, the idea that, you know, we want to be in a state of knowing because that makes us feel safe. So the concept of being a learner versus a knower. The learner is somebody that is always willing to shift and be flexible and expand as they learn new things, as new things come in. And I mean, that can be on so many different levels, right? And so then the concept of the knower feels like you have to understand things in order for things to make sense, in order for you to be safe. And that keeps you close-minded and closed to possibilities. So I see this like sort of toggling back and forth between those two concepts. And it really is just a choice of who you want to be. So this idea of Brandy who's Beyonce and Brandy who's like so fucked up beyond belief is really a choice inside of you to say, this is who I am. And, you know, I'm not getting into like just underneath all of it, that's a choice. And maybe you say, I want to be Beyonce today, but tomorrow you don't want to be Beyonce. And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of just being multidimensional, and it's okay. I think the biggest thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about like the love line on Friday or the third day with fear, of really strengthening like the love muscle. Because right now we're just so used to strengthening not that. So if you just think about like when you're working out and you're like working out the same muscle over and over and over, we've been like working out like fear and low self-worth and doubt and separateness from everybody, you know, for a long time, and especially this year with COVID. You know, even just like going out to the store and like assuming everybody has it, you know, like has created these spaces where we have to be, you know, separate. So you and I could probably talk for like 6 hours on this subject and just what you just wrote about. The other thing I wanted to make sure I shared with you is, you know, the space of recognizing, you know, and the idea that like, I still have a lot of work to do that Terry mentioned, like, if you didn't, we wouldn't be here anymore. So like, I hate that feeling too. Like I've done so much, or I'm so elevated. Like, you know, I have the same things too. I get very, high and mighty, especially in close partnerships. But if we had it all figured out, we wouldn't be here anymore, and our time would be done. And so with you talking about saying yes to so many things, and like your natural reaction is to just see how you can make something work, I would just recommend like dedicating some time, an hour or something, or maybe it's like once a week, you give yourself 15 minutes to just like date your preferences. Like sit on the couch and be like, what do I actually like to do? Like, what do I like to do? And, you know, notice I think it's really about the awareness is the first step of like noticing where you're saying yes when you should be saying no, but not beating yourself up for saying yes to it.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that, man, I feel like my, something's coming out, obviously. I feel like I all of a sudden sound like I've got a frog in my throat. When you were like, maybe you should try this, my first thought was like that old 90s movie Liar Liar, where like one day he just like couldn't tell a lie.
yeah.
Like I just imagine myself like picking one day and not telling anybody, but just like saying no.
Yeah.
Everything I actually want to say no to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like my whole world would explode.
Well, I wouldn't recommend doing that, only because there's this whole other facet of strengthening your nervous system to be able to handle what happens when you set a boundary. Because
Oh yeah.
when you go all the way on the other end and your system isn't really capable of holding that boundary,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more damaging. So, I mean, well, it's a,
Yeah.
funny concept, but I think that goes back into the binary thinking again, like, I need to do this all correctly, or this all needs to happen in one day. And yes, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just like
Mm-hmm.
wipe the slate clean and like make it, but we've like arrived here in this moment, and I'm seeing it as like tweaks, just tweaks, and like building off of the positive energy that you already have in areas. And then whenever something is like not working, just seeing it and being like, all right, I see you. I'm not, even if you don't know how to fix it yet or whatever, well, I invite a solution to show up for me. I know you, so I know that you have a lot on your plate, and probably not super good at delegating support. So just recognizing that there are solutions, and instead of being like, what are the solutions? Just being like, okay, I raise my level of acceptance to the idea that there are solutions that I'm not seeing yet. I raise my level of acceptance to the idea, because it's like, we want to like baby step you into that space of being ready for it. And a lot of times, when we're doing self-development work, or you're living an experience that you don't like, you want to just, slap an affirmation on it and be like, I am Beyonce, because Beyonce has the same amount of hours like that I have in the day or whatever, like, which I say to myself sometimes too. But, if I'm saying that when I really don't believe it, it's actually damaging the psyche. It's actually like it's like you trying to trick your psyche into being okay with something.
Mm-hmm.
So really it's about like discovering what the beliefs are underneath the feelings, and being able to shift those beliefs from a space of having your system really supported and held. And, that's what I've experienced creating like lasting change. And oftentimes we're so back to the idea of being connected. Oftentimes when you shift one big thing in your system, so much else shifts along with it without you needing to lift a finger. So going back into like feeling like you're always working on yourself, like I've learned in this past year that like, I mean, we are also in a time where like, we're actually currently in a time in the middle of eclipse season. And like during this time, like healing opportunities are accelerated, and we're moving into this, like, I mean, everything is moving so fast right now, and it's continuing to pick up and build. And it's time for us to catch up with that and to just receive the healing and receive the shifts without questioning them, without trying to know them, and just let it energetically upgrade us. That's getting into like some other thinking, but it's an opportunity. Is that helpful?
Oh yeah.
I feel like we need like a side note conversation, but I'm like happy to talk about this. Okay, I'm seeing the book Burnout talks about human givers versus human beings, which was eye-opening. I love that, Janelle. I love that. I have not read that. That sounds super fascinating. So let me just explain what the rest of the workshop was supposed to be. And I will just follow up. Like, I feel like this is probably, well, I'll just share. So I wanted to just have everyone share if you felt like sharing. Notice if you feel anywhere in your body. So like at the beginning, how people were noticing like heat and tingles and different things. Notice if your body is still, processing things, and just be aware of it. And then after this, I would recommend like shaking your body, like dancing. Like I was going to have us all do it and be awkward, but like really just like shake it out, like get all weird and give yourself just like 2 minutes to just like shake it all out, because we just want to continue releasing. And then I have a series of statements that I'll just follow up with them. I mean, unless people really want to hang on. I just want to be sensitive to your time that you can say. So what you'll do is just say the statements, and after each statement, just take a deep breath in and breathe out. And you can also riff off of the statements. And I find this really helpful to say out loud. Hearing your voice, like process the language, is really, really powerful. And I think it's just more powerful than we know. So if you feel silly, give yourself like private, do it in the shower or something like that. Like give yourself like a private space to do it. And then, I wanted to say before we stepped off, just be sure to drink water tonight and allow, because again, we did shift some stuff from the very beginning. And then also as you're like bringing these things forward. So definitely drink water, allow, whatever toxins from these emotions to release from your system. Be tender with yourself, just notice how you're feeling. And then, really, I wanted to just offer, if you're in it, if you're feeling all the shit, which, most people are, but if you're ready for a shift and, looking for some one-on-one support, I would love to hold the space for you to move through what you're working through, really, so that you can have the 2021 that looks really different from the space that you're in right now, where you're obviously liberating you, but then able to start co-creating the life and the world that you want to create in this space. So if that looks like you, I'll drop a link in here and you're welcome to connect and just hop on a chat with me. And I'm really good at being able to tell if it's not the right fit and pointing you into the direction of other people who might be able to better serve you. So feel free to explore that. And then, tomorrow we'll be honoring grief and guilt, which is another big thing. And then Thursday, I mentioned a little bit, we'll be talking about fear and really just how that area, like our neural pathway that is accessing fear, is just like on overdrive, and what we can do to kind of help to restore the balance and release the fear. If anyone wants to stay, I'll hang out for questions, but otherwise, I hope you all have a beautiful evening, and it's really wonderful to share this space with you. Thanks, Melissa. I'm glad you were here. I love your candle light. Otherwise, feel free to pop off. And then, I'm going to stop recording here.